Austin Simmons is the answer for all of the quarterback chaos that is around college football. I will explain.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, the most watched Ole Miss podcast around. I am your host, Steven Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports and a former Ole Miss staff member. On today's show, we look back at what we said were the biggest needs in the transfer portal way back in December and whether or not Ole Miss met them going into the season. We also break down the top 5 most important quarterbacks for the 2025 season. Austin Simmons is obviously number 1. But first, we talk about why Ole Miss may have a true advantage at quarterback with Austin Simmons and his ability to find consistency amid chaos in college football in 2025. That could be the difference maker for the Rebels. We're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day. And a special hello to the everydayers who make the show what it is. Do us a favor and like and subscribe and comment on this video. It costs nothing, but keeps this free. And don't forget to check out a second listen on the network. Nearly every team, college and pro, is there for you and ready for you. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when that first $5 bet wins. So this year is weird for college football. You know, whenever you want to play the blue blood game from time to time, it works most of the time. But this year, it absolutely does not. This year in college football, you look at the 23 teams that are 100-1 or less for the national championship. 15 of them have new quarterbacks this season, including Ohio State, Miami, Texas, Georgia, Oregon, Notre Dame, Alabama, FSU, Missouri, Indiana, OU, Auburn. All of these teams that are considered for the national championship, they're all replacing quarterbacks. What that has led to is a whole bunch of quarterback chaos this season, to where you just don't know who's going to end up where. Arch Manning is the FanDuel favorite to win the Heisman Trophy. He is a first-year starter this season. Garrett Nussmeier's second, by the way. Julian Sayin, DJ Lagway, John Mateer, Dante Moore, Kevin Jennings, Carson Beck, and then Austin Simmons. They're all in the running for the Heisman Trophy for the top 12 or 13 spots this season. Austin Simmons is 33-1 to win the Heisman Trophy this year. Austin Simmons has never started a game. Why is everybody so high on Austin Simmons? And that is what we're going to talk about today. When you are dealing with a coach like Lane Kiffin, who thrives on chaos, he is the little finger of college football, to where more chaos, the better. Chaos is a ladder. Lane Kiffin figures out the ways to make it up to the top in that scenario. But it's a double-edged sword, okay? This is at Ole Miss. This isn't just college football as a whole. It's a double-edged sword, because in the chaos, there's a chance to play that slot machine and end up the other way. Jackson Dart fell victim a little bit to that in 2024, and also there was more stability in college football in 2024. That doesn't exist in 2025. There's so much unknown and not paying attention to what's going on. Which brings us to Austin Simmons. Austin Simmons is a redshirt sophomore that has already graduated from college. Every bit. He's 19, 20 years old, graduated from college. He sat behind Jackson Dart the last 2 years. In some cases, the rumors that I heard in practice, Austin looked better than Jackson in practice. Jackson Dart was the leader of the team. You don't mess with the locker room and things like that. But Austin Simmons, tools-wise, was doing things as a freshman and a redshirt freshman that should be paid attention to. Austin Simmons, after Jackson Dart got banged up against Georgia last season, led the Ole Miss Rebel football team down for a touchdown, and eventually Ole Miss kind of blew out that Georgia Bulldogs team. One of the best wins in the entire conference that year was what Ole Miss did to Georgia, and a lot of that had to do with Austin Simmons. Last season, it was just 19 of 32, 282 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. But I will say this. Those numbers are better than what Eli Manning did. That's better than what Romero Miller did. It is hard to come in as a redshirt freshman and perform at a high level. Austin Simmons was able to do that. And the reason I say that he is the answer to all the chaos in college football at the quarterback position for 2025 is the consistency, the cerebral nature of him. He actually matches up with a Lane Kiffin better than you think. He is somebody that is not going to get too high, not going to get too low. He is just going to make the best decision possible each and every single time. That is what we've seen when he has gotten on the field, and we get to see him. We get the reins against Georgia State. The national media, they're in love with Arch Manning. Arch Manning, listen, he could turn out to be a really good quarterback, but he did not All-Star game. He did not Elite 11. He avoided competition all the way through until he got his offer at Texas. At Newman High School, against good teams in the playoffs, he ended up with about 100 yards passing. Austin Simmons was a relief pitcher for the Ole Miss baseball team. The moment is not too high for an Austin Simmons. He's used to coming in cold into charged environments. The high leverage reliever is something that Austin Simmons is used to. He is going to come into this Ole Miss game and be consistent, cerebral, calm, calculating, all of the things that Lane Kiffin is not known for. And that combination has a chance to T. Martin this a little bit for Ole Miss. Excuse the Tennessee reference there. But what I mean by that is after a generational quarterback at Tennessee and Peyton Manning, who did not really win anything, you got a quarterback in T. Martin that actually got Tennessee over that hump. Austin Simmons has a chance to do that. And with all of the chaos that is around college football, we showed all of the new quarterbacks that are highly ranked and expected to do pretty well. Austin Simmons calculating personality, his processing ability, all of the stuff that could make him a 1-1 level quarterback is going to make him successful when you're having to pare down offenses around the country for a new quarterback to see exactly what you have. The nerves that go with a coach. Remember, when it comes to a coach, they want to see over and over 1,000 clips of film before they feel confident. They're naturally slow decision makers. Lane Kiffin is not. But most football coaches are very slow. They don't want to make the wrong choice. And whenever you're dealing with a quarterback, that can be a problem. I think Austin Simmons has a chance to be a star in college football. I think Austin Simmons has a chance to be massive. When you look at what you need to watch for, there's some offensive changes that might be coming Ole Miss's way. Lane Kiffin traditionally builds offenses designed for the strength of his team. He doesn't do a system to where in some years there's a square peg and a round hole because he only knows how to coach football one way. He builds the offense around the strength of his team. And I think that might be the processing ability of Austin Simmons. When you look at Caden Lee, his sure-handedness, the big guys on the outside, there's weapons all over the field, and the tight end position. Ole Miss recruited 3 players with tight end bodies in the winter transfer portal. That's Trace Bruckler from New Mexico. That is Luke Haas from Arkansas, and he has a chance to be a really good player, by the way. And Caleb Odom has a tight end body to where you can line him up on the outside, but actually it looks like it could be 12 or 13 personnel on the field, which will cause the defense to look a little bit different. And last of all, Joe Judge taking more of an expanded role with the quarterbacks. That's a major tell. That's a major pro-style jump for Joe Judge and Austin Simmons. The offense is going to look a little bit different in 2025. Austin Simmons has a chance to be that dude in 2025. Teams that have a first-year starting quarterback, they usually count on them struggling early on. So far, Austin Simmons has not struggled, whether that is through a relationship of Caden Lee, Daquan Wright. You're not really sure about it, but he has not struggled at that level. With other teams game planning for him, we'll see what happens when Ole Miss goes up to Kentucky, which I think is the only road game before Ole Miss faces Georgia. That is a big game for Austin Simmons. And traditionally on defense, Mark Stoops does a pretty good job. But early in the season, as the ramp up happens, it's not like last year where you have 4 preseason games, because the Kentucky game and the Arkansas game and the Tulane game are going to be tougher contests. You do have a little bit of a ramp. Those who tell you you do not have a little bit of a ramp, they're lying to you. Georgia State is not as good as Kentucky, and Kentucky is not as good as Arkansas, and Arkansas is not as good as Tulane, and Tulane is not as good as LSU. There is a ramp for Austin Simmons in the month of September, but Austin Simmons, being that cerebral, calculating quarterback, has the ability to cut through all of this quarterback chaos that is going around college football and causing all of the uncertainty as well. Listen, Ole Miss does not like depth charts. They may steer clear of them, but we're building our own. Up next, the top 5 quarterbacks most important to the Rebels' success in 2025. Stick around. You don't want to miss it. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make the game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. It sounds pretty good, right? It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. That is an advertisement against the 511 playoff model, by the way. You can get Austin Simmons at plus 3,300 to win the Heisman Trophy this year. That's good enough for 13th in the country. Ole Miss is also a 37.5-point favorite over Georgia State in the opener. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if that first bet wins. Open FanDuel's app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, so we've been doing top 5s, and we started with the defense last week. This week is going to be the offense, and we're going to start with the quarterback room. Now, some places coming up with a top 5 can be difficult. This one was a little bit interesting because of the activity in the spring transfer portal. Remember, at the quarterback position for Ole Miss, everybody knows that Austin Simmons is going to be the dude. He's going to be the guy playing quarterback for Ole Miss. But after that, it got a little bit weird. In the spring, Ole Miss's A.J. Maddox tore a ligament in his hand, which really freaked out Lane Kiffin because Pierce Clarkson honestly was not that good. It was somebody that he was not going to rise higher than 3rd on the depth chart from where he was. So he transferred out. I think he went to UCLA or something like that. So Ole Miss went into the transfer portal, and it was interesting. And we're going to talk about all of that. So this is the top 5 players most important to Ole Miss at quarterback in 2025. Obviously, we start with Austin Simmons. He's the most important player on the team, by the way. We talked in the first segment about his nature and the way he goes. It helps Ole Miss and helps himself cut through the quarterback chaos that is going to happen this season. Austin Simmons is a 1-1 level talent at quarterback. And what I mean by that is he has a chance to be the first player picked in the draft. The 3 quarterbacks that have gone in the first round for Ole Miss, you have Jackson Dart, you have Archie Manning, and you have Eli Manning. Eli Manning went 1-1, I believe. Archie Manning went as the second pick, and Jackson Dart went somewhere in the 20s. Austin Simmons has 1-1 level ability. Whether you look at his 6'4" frame, you look at his rifle for an arm, you look at his ball placement and accuracy, you look at the smartness of this player, he has all of the tools that NFL scouts are looking for a quarterback. Austin Simmons, he has all the potential in the world for Ole Miss this season. And if Ole Miss makes a playoff run, if Ole Miss hits the next level that Ole Miss fans and myself all want Ole Miss to see, it is going to be because of Austin Simmons having a really big year. Second quarterback on the list is Trinidad Chambliss. He was a spring transfer portal quarterback out of Ferris State. I think that's in Michigan. He is somebody that is going to play this year. And anybody that has any questions about that, remember that J.J. Pegues got packages a year ago in short yardage. It's not going to be a bull running back. It's going to be somebody that is really slippery and somebody that can provide a little bit something different from Austin Simmons. Trinidad Chambliss is likely going to get on the field for Ole Miss this season in specific categories, whether it's in the short red zone, the tight red zone, or you're looking at a 4th down and 1, you're playing the analytics game. Look for Trinidad Chambliss to show up. The third player I want to talk about is Maealiuaki Smith, the quarterback that actually started 2 games at Oklahoma State. He was backing up Alan Bowman over the course of the year, and Oklahoma State was quarterback challenged without Bowman. Maealiuaki Smith was a true freshman, got thrust in at the end of the year, had a 300-yard passing game against Texas Tech. I think he only threw for 120 yards against Colorado, but Maealiuaki Smith has the starting experience, and that is the reason I rank him a little bit above A.J. Maddox at the moment. Number 4 is A.J. Maddox, the quarterback that in the spring was on his way, honestly, to having the backup job completely sewn up, had a little bit of bad luck and tore some ligaments in his hand. And after that, Lane Kiffin freaked out a little bit. We've seen the Ole Miss personnel department freak out a little bit. After Quinshon Judkins went to Ohio State, Ole Miss's personnel department freaked out at running back. None of them ended up hitting. And because of that, you had the running back issues that Ole Miss had a year ago. A.J. Maddox getting injured. Lane Kiffin and the personnel department freaked out. Trinidad Chambliss, Maealiuaki Smith, good players that they were bringing in to raise the talent level, but it was because of the A.J. Maddox injury, and you weren't quite sure how that was going to go. A.J. Maddox, I think, is throwing right now, if I'm not mistaken. He has a chance to still move up the list. I don't think a backup quarterback is in his future, because with Trinidad Chambliss being a one and done, you kind of expect him to kind of be there. And Maealiuaki Smith and A.J. Maddox, they're going to fight back and forth for the number 3 quarterback, in my opinion. I think Maealiuaki Smith has the advantage because of the starting games that he has played. The last one is Shalky Aitrash. If I mispronounce that, I am waiting on the Ole Miss Media Guide for correct pronunciation of Shalky Aitrash. Quarterback that has played at Rice, does not have the most, eye-popping numbers for the quarterback. He is somebody that is coming to Ole Miss to learn from Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weiss and offense in general. I think Shalky wants to be a football coach when he moves on, but if this guy's running your scout team, you're probably going to be all right. If you look at the depth in this quarterback room, the number 5 quarterback played at Rice, started at Rice. So that lets you know the talent that's in this room as we sit right now. One of the benefits that Ole Miss had a year ago was if and when Jackson Dart went down, you had an Austin Simmons. If and when Austin Simmons has to come out for a play, if a helmet pops off, you don't feel bad because you have a Trinidad Chambliss, somebody that can throw the ball downfield, somebody that is an elite runner that ran for over 1,000 yards at Division II Ferris State a year ago. I like where Ole Miss is sitting in the quarterback room, especially at the top. Austin Simmons, like I said, I think he has a 1-1 level ability. And I like Trinidad Chambliss. It'd be interesting to see what a mad scientist like Lane Kiffin will do with a Trinidad Chambliss and Malachi Smith and AJ Maddox being the true backups. The quarterback room is sitting pretty at the moment. I am very, very okay about where this unit sits right now. In our final segment, we look back at the key needs Ole Miss had going into the transfer portal. We break down whether or not that Ole Miss checked every single box. That is coming up next. All right, so going into the transfer portal in 2025, it was a little bit different because Ole Miss, they went all in 2024. They absolutely did with Walter Nolan and those guys retaining players like Trey Harris and Princely Amon Miel. There was a lot of good players that Ole Miss had in their system. They went all in. They played the slot machine a couple of times. It did not work. They ended up losing the game to Kentucky, LSU, and Florida. 3 games they absolutely should not have lost. Even the fans of the other team would tell you that. But Ole Miss played the slot machine twice on the road, and the other team was able to get the momentum. Tiger Stadium and the Swamp became Tiger Stadium and the Swamp. It's a situation to where if you don't believe in momentum, you are all in on analytics. If you do believe in the momentum, you're going to take it a little bit easy, especially when you're playing on the road and taking the points where they are available. I personally am a big believer in momentum. You have to learn how to play as a favorite as opposed to an underdog. And that is the biggest thing that I think Ole Miss has to get over in the next couple of years. Ole Miss has won 10 games, 3 out of the last 4 seasons. I always tell people, they call me a sunshine pumper. It is not pumping sunshine when it is sunshining outside. Ole Miss winning games, going to Sweet 16s, a national championship in baseball. If you don't enjoy this, that is a crime worse than anything, and you are never going to enjoy anything about Ole Miss sports. So enjoy what's going on right now, and we'll see what happens in a little bit. So Ole Miss in the transfer portal had some needs going into it. This is a graphic that we did back in December. We changed the pictures on it, obviously, but these were the portal needs that Ole Miss had going into December. Cornerback and safety. We're originally concerned about the defensive back room. Listen, Pete Golding, I believe, was on the fireside chat with Chris Beard and talked about how his front seven, he thinks the front seven is going to be pretty good. He also said he expects the secondary to be better too than people think. And a lot of that has to do with the players that got brought in and how they got used in spring. Like in cornerback, the number one, Jalen Braxton is the player to pay attention to there. Ricky Fletcher in the spring. You can see them at it with a Chris Graves, with a Cedric Beavers for a little bit depth in the cornerback room. Jalen Braxton will be tasked to do the stuff that Trey Amos did. Can he do it? He was freshman All-SEC. He's a good player. He got injured last season, had a pick against Oklahoma State before that happened. This player has a chance to be really good moving forward, but he is not as established as Trey Amos. And that is the theme of this transfer portal. Lots of high ceiling players, lots of unknowns with players. You're counting on things to click that hasn't clicked, but they're young players. They're developmental players. They are, if you are coached very well, you have a chance to develop them at a very high level. At safety, for instance, Ole Miss picked up Sage Ryan. He's somebody I believe was a 5-star coming out of high school. At LSU, it never really clicked. Now, a lot of that had to do with the defensive coordinators that LSU had and going from system to system, because every player, like I say, is a system player to some extent. Sage Ryan playing safety, whether it's going to be strong safety or free safety, he might sit back in the defense and be a smart guy. Ole Miss lost Trey Washington, one of the best safeties that they have had. Honest, if we're going to be real about it, you never had to worry about Trey Harris. And Sage Ryan and Wydett Williams coming into the safety position, they have to gel pretty quickly. So we'll see what happens. I know Pete Golding's happy of what he has at safety, but we'll see once fall camp starts. We'll have Dalen Flowers, Michael Katz, Sam Hutchins. Anytime the doors open, we will have eyes in on practice, so they'll be able to talk about that. If you have any questions and all that, hit them up in the comments, and we'll at least get them to people to get the answers. Number 3, running back, Kewan Lacey, Damian Taylor. Really good players that transferred in. Logan Diggs did not play last year, but he was a transfer. I like this running back room. I think it was more thoughtfully put together than last season. Offensive line is going to be a question. They brought in 4 players, including Patrick Kutas, who is one of the best, if not the best, interior offensive lineman that was available in the portal, another player out of Arkansas. I think you're going to find out that the running back room was kind of the problem with Ole Miss last season. They do zone blocking. They run block on every single play. That's what they do whenever they do RPOs. It's a run block. So them putting pressure on the quarterback, it was because it was a run block, and it's easier to run block than pass block when you're run blocking. I do not blame the offensive line too much, and I like the tackles with Jaden Williams and Diego Pounds on the outside. Patrick Kutas, I like Bryson Sanders. We'll see what happens at the other guard. They got the first top 100 player on the offensive line for Ole Miss in 4 or 5 years. I expect Devin Harper to at least have a say of where they end up at left guard. So we'll see what happens. At quarterback, we talked about quarterback in the second segment. I broke all of those players down. And I think Ole Miss hit their needs at quarterback. That's all that. I like Austin Simmons. Trinidad Chambliss provides something different. And then you have the true backups in Malachi Smith and A.J. Maddox. And I think you're going to be fine at Ole Miss. Now, one position that's not on this list that they did a good job is at the wide receiver position with Harrison Wallace III, Deshaun Stribling from Oklahoma State. He actually caught passes from Malachi Smith. And also Caleb Odom, who has a chance to be a red zone monster. He's somebody that will be used like a DK Metcalf down in the red zone and has a chance to be pretty good. For his career, Deshaun Stribling has 161 catches, 2,153 yards, and 17 touchdowns. He's a really good player. And when you look at all of this stuff that we talked about the transfer portal, the quarterbacks as a whole, this should give every Ole Miss fan excitement and hope, because Austin Simmons is the perfect quarterback to match with Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin is the perfect coach with everything that is going on with all the chaos around college football. Ole Miss is in a better situation than the national media want to admit. They got burned last year. Ole Miss did not make the playoff. They thought Ole Miss was. They thought Ole Miss was the smart money to get there. Ole Miss did not make it. They did not want to get burned again. The computers, though, love Ole Miss. So we'll see how it goes. This should be a fun season. It's the last day of June. We are officially into Media Days month tomorrow. So we'll see exactly how that goes. Listen, thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss your go-to source for Ole Miss news. We pride ourselves on offering the most comprehensive perspectives. That's why we're the front door of Ole Miss. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment on the show. It's totally free, and let's keep it that way. Subscribe if you can. Your support means the world to us. For your second listen, check out the Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes around college football's landscape. Find the Portal Podcast on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Hotty toddy, everyone. And remember, analytics is just the old English word that means bad football. We'll see you tomorrow.